Hello everyone and welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan on Lir Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary. And my lovely guest today, a man I've never met before, but COVID has brought out, I think, the best in all of us, really, and the collegiality in all of us, because it's Kevin Costello from the UK. And hello, Kevin.
How are you, Mary?
Great. The thing about Kevin is that we're all part of this wonderful, wacky world of Irish dancing. There's alliteration for you, but the wonderful, wacky world of Irish dancing. But Kevin, you're part of WIDA.
I am.
I confess to knowing very little about, other than that it is global. It is starting to get very, very big, and I was interested in the what you have down on your website about the ADCRG process. There's no exam as such with the ADCRG. Once you've done your TCRG and your TMRF, you have to do the TMRF as well as the TCRG.
Yeah. So I was, I'm with WIDA now, and I've been with WIDA. I'm a bit of a newbie, to be honest with you, Mary, because I never heard of WIDA till about 5 years ago. I was former commission. I was commissioned all my life, actually.
Yeah.
And I done my TCRG, and I was successful, and I got my TCRG with on commission many moons ago, but we'll leave it at that, okay? No, it was 1990, I'm going to say 1994 or 95. So it was around, like, you know, all the other guests that you've interviewed. It was at the peak of Irish dancing when Riverdance flew on to Eurovision.
Yeah, 1995-ish.
Yeah, and I was competing then. I think I did my last senior men's at the World around 1990, I think. And I was a very young teacher with commission. And yeah, so where have them years gone, Mary?
Gosh, I was in Bunratty Castle at the time dancing. I was a female lead there at the time, and for 14 years. And so I was out of the competition scene, but 7 nights a week dancing. So yeah, around 1990, I was in the full thrust of it.
Yeah.
It's flown. I mean, it's only like yesterday.
Well, like, you know, you say there 7 days a week, and that's what I was doing. I was doing intense training, like most of the top dancers are now.
Who did you dance for, Kevin?
The legendary, and my second mom, the legendary Kathleen Clifford.
Oh, Kathleen, she's lovely.
She is now, you know, and
she judged my fresh a few years ago. She was lovely, but very fond of Kathleen.
Well, we share the same initials, Casey.
That's right.
And without her nurturing me, I wouldn't be sitting here talking. So I owe it all to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much of an impact a teacher can have, good or bad. And we're fortunate, I suppose, in Irish dancing that there's such a wealth of talented teachers, and they you know, I don't think they get enough praise, really. I really don't, and I genuinely mean that, because the amount of dedication they put into dancing beyond competition, you know, I mean, they're there for hours, myself included, hours at a feis. You'd often put off eating until you've seen and this dancer or that dancer competing. And you're going to these competitions on your own expenses and everything, but it doesn't feel like you're doing it out of that you feel like you're doing it because you love it. Do you know, it's a passion.
It is a passion, because I still love it, and you know, when we finish the interview today, I've still got to do lessons, and I'll be doing choreography all weekend and planning for next week's and that. And I think in all the years, I've only probably missed 2 weeks of lessons in the 25 years I've been in it. But I was teaching, so I was with Kathleen all my life, and I was mentioning 7 days a week, probably about 5 out of 7 lessons I would go to her, and we would be doing the dancing. And like what you said there, Kathleen was very committed, and she still is, to her students.
Absolutely.
And she'd be there at the feshes, and the crack would be grand. And I want to go back to a good friend of mine, mutual, and Kathleen, Carol Scanlon. And that's what Irish dancing. Yeah, that's what Irish dancing is all about.
Absolutely, Carol Scanlon's is a star.
The competitions are one thing, and the competitive side, we are very much involved with WIDA. But there's more to competitions, Mary, and I've learned that. I've learned that through the pandemic, that the children need a purpose. I get that, but they need motivation as well. And going back to my point before we came on air, I'm like Fred Flintstone in regards the technology. So when I was growing up, you had to have the skills of listening to the teacher, but she taught me discipline, the good and the bad. But sure, like when you came off the stage at Leisureland, you were out on the dodgems, you were out on the beach, and that was it. And you had the recall. You never had the recall, and that was the memories I had with Kathleen. That you took the good with the bad, and that was it. And I think that it's taught you in life that disappointments are going to come your way. And Irish dancing gives you the highs and lows, and it gives you good foundations. And I do pass on a lot of Kathleen's passion onto my students now. So yeah, it's almost like a role reversal, but I carry on her teaching and her passion as well. And
you've probably got her style of teaching as well that you've brought into your own classroom, because we are heavily influenced by those who actually teach us, because we often see, I know, again with Bunratty, I saw the people I worked with in Bunratty probably more than my own family, because I was with them. As I say, I'd go to work at 8 in the morning, finish at 5 or 4, go straight to Bunratty, and I was there until 12 at night, 11:30. So you'd see more of these people almost than your own family, and they become your family, and they almost take over the maternal role or the paternal role to you. They're probably the only other people, bar your parents, who can tell you off or tell you you're not doing it right. And there's none of us know better than us what it's like to be told, that was rubbish, go back and do it again. Your confidence can be shattered, but built up as a result of being told that you're not perfect, you haven't done it right, go back and do it again, over and over and over and over again.
And that's interesting there about the style. You're going to laugh here. Apart from the high heels and the fur coat, I do.
You think you're Catholic Clifford?
Yeah. And no, I'm on about but the style. God, yeah. And another one of Kathleen's students, Mary Teresa McHugh. I think you mentioned her with the high.
Mary Teresa's a lady.
Yeah. Now we've remained very, very good friends, Kathleen, Mary, and me. And yes, this style. See, for me, when I'm judging, it's turn out. It's the first thing I look for. And I'm sure if you were having a conversation with any of Kathleen's ADs and her pupils, turnout is art, because that was just drummed and drilled into us. And then the style, you can pick Kathleen's dancers out, because every one of her children, they walk on, the second they start and the second they finish, their feet are just turned out all the time. So yeah,
so important.
I pass on that turn up. Big thing for me.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, I'm a feet person. I love good basics. I think once dancers have the good basics, they'll carry that through their entire career, whether it's competition or, and there's nothing nicer than looking at somebody on stage with beautiful feet
Hmm.
and beautiful carriage and the great basics. You know, you
Oh
could be
God.
doing all the technically brilliant steps in the world, but if they're not done with polish and flair and style and the basics right, then you know what good is doing something that you're not doing properly.
Well, Mary, on that point, you know, again, coming back to the pandemic, the teacher, good, look, it's grand that we've got the technology and we're able to connect with our pupils.
Hmm.
However, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm probably speaking for the majority of teachers. Should we ever had that in our day, and having that role model and that critique, it made you tough in life, and you listened, and you were
Oh
there.
God, yeah.
You were there, nurtured by your teacher and friend, and you know, I just
Well,
think
Kevin, you weren't pussyfooted around either. You weren't told, oh, that was fabulous. Oh, well done. You just need to do this again, but that was beautiful. You were told that was utter rubbish. Go back and do it again.
you would
And it toughened you up.
you would get the glare of the glint in her eye, and she's still got that now, Mary. And she'd look at you, and then you wouldn't go near her. You think you would be on that stage, and then you'd be dying after. You're going to laugh now. I never forget one of my fondest memories. We went over to the All Island, and was it always in February? It was always cold, wasn't it? The All Island.
Yeah, it's always cold.
And God rest my mum. There's me and my mum, the McHughes, and we went over, and I can remember this now. And she gave me the longest set dance on the planet, the Kilkenny races. So, okay. And like nowadays, Mary, you have to be warmed up and stretched and have a mind coach and have this vitamin. And oh, right. But you know what? You done your dance, you had the bit of crack, and you waited for your recall. Anyway, so we've done the dance, right? Listen to me. The Mansion House, something to do with the government, they were on strike. So last minute they had to get a hall. And 2:45 in the morning, I was doing my Kilkenny races. And, you know, but it's then...
You wouldn't be doing that now, Kevin. You wouldn't be doing my last Munster Championships. The result came out at 5 a.m. For my last Munsters, and I can still remember I was third in the qualifiers, and I couldn't even walk up on stage. I could barely go up. I didn't even care at that stage. You know, you wouldn't do that now.
No, and I think that it's them things that stick in your head, and again, coming back to being tough, it gives you an awful lot of life skills, and you know you're thrown in when I want to echo what one of your former guests, James McLaughlin. You go through your dancing career, okay,
Yeah.
and then you get your TCRG, but then you're almost set along, get on with it. There's no rule book in any dance school, and you meet parents and you meet all walks of life. And when you're young, you're not expecting all this because you're trained to think you want every dancer to do well, and that I still do that. You know, part of our dance school is the friendship and the spirit and the unity,
Yeah.
and we install that all the time. And what James was saying there, and I couldn't agree with him more. He was saying that a lot of expectations from some parents, you wouldn't go up to the secondary school and say, why hasn't my child got an A star, and challenge the head? But then you would get some parents that couldn't accept that their child wouldn't get the recall, or be 10th in the world, or be 20th in the world.
Yeah.
And if you're top 20 in the world out of them competitors, you're doing pretty good. And that's the only thing that I would say, that, you know, when you're novice in the primary and everything's going grand and they're winning, but when you're about at that top flight, and what Carol was saying, we're all friends, but it's dog eat dog. When you're on that stage for that minute, you have to shine. You have to, and all them hours you're putting in. And I think that the learning curve through my career is it does give you an awful lot of people skills. Next year now, thanks be to God, I'll be 25 years teaching. Would you believe that now? And throughout that, I've got students now, and their moms have had children, and they've been very loyal, like I was to Kathleen. And you are an advocate, you're a role model, and you know they look up to you, and you're as you said earlier, you're transferring on them skills that your teacher. So you're passing down not only the skills, but the culture of Irish dancing.
Yeah.
Now, where I live is very highly. It was when I was growing up, very highly populated Scottish and Irish, and my parents are from Galway, and there's still Irish dancing is still very, very popular, even though all the other genres, street dance, ballet, hip hop, all these, dance plays a very important part in our town. We're very blessed in Corby to have that many dance schools in Corby. But going back to your point about being the role model for the children, it isn't just like, it can be a hobby for some, and a small percentage do go on to go into the open grade, and then a smaller percentage then go on to get into the elite level, and that's when you do become friends with fellow teachers, your own teacher. And as I say, so what am I? I'm giving my age now. I'm the same age now from your town, Jared Stack. He was in my age group, Jared.
Oh, okay, Jared. Jared was my dancing partner in Bunratty.
Yeah. So now that gives you know how long I've been in dancing now, over 40 years.
Yeah. Do you know, I've been even longer, but the thing about it is, you know, it is, what was it like for you, Kevin, when you made that decision to leave commission and join WIDA? Because it's something it's just not something I would do. I've always been commission. Even when the split came, we had no concept of the split between commission and Cogal, and we were with our teacher. I was with O'Rourke's, and from Dr. John Conlan, apparently everyone was Cogal and everyone was commission, and you paid your subscription to both, but Cogal forced them to make a choice, and so John and his sister remained with commission in Cork. Everyone else in Cork went with Cogal. All of Limerick stayed with on commission. I had no idea. None of us had any idea about a split. We were just with our dancing class. There was no concept of otherness in our lexicon. We didn't have any idea of otherness. We were all just Irish dancers.
Mary, I'm the same, and there's a picture behind you. You would probably see a big picture where there's probably about 40 of my students in dresses. Yeah, big. Yeah. So it was just right behind you. So that was when my school. I had about. Now don't forget. Now I was teaching on my own. Yeah. And that would be tough now, because again, you had
I teach on my own.
And you can see by the style of the dresses. Yeah. Yep. And then it got to the stage then that the dresses then were, I would say, very expensive. However, we're then verging on a decision making from a parent. Oh, well, I can't afford that dress at X amount. And it came down to a lot of then parents' decisions saying to me, Kevin, well, we can't. Is it all about the dress? So I couldn't sit back and say yes or no. And then a lot of the parents said, well, you know, we just can't afford the new look. And then following on from that, then I thought to myself, well, children then thought, well, if it's about the dress, we don't want to then compete. So then I was, that last photograph, there were all them children, they were all competing. But then some felt to themselves, well, because they didn't want to then go on and buy, at that time, I think they were around 700, which is still quite a lot of money. But it was getting to the point, Mary, that they were then creeping into the 1,000. And people were then kind of speaking with their feet thinking, well, we don't really want to kind of go down that road with spending more. And I'll come back to the where I am in Corby.
But you surely could have got second-hand ones, because the second-hand market for new costumes is just extraordinarily good value, because I mean some of these costumes are only worn 4 or 5 times.
Exactly.
If even worn. Yeah. And certainly the ones that were bought before COVID now, you're getting an absolute bargain, because, you know, I mean, they were never worn at all.
Absolutely. And following on from that point, at that point then children then thought to themselves, well, can we do displays? And we're still very, very involved in, we're a community group. And then a lot of children thought, well, we want to do displays. So then I kind of came off the circuit with the competitions, but I had to kind of think, well, you've got competitions, you've got displays, you've got charity events, da-da-da-da-da. And then my mum became very ill with Alzheimer's. Oh. And I was teaching like five nights a week.
Yeah. And
I just couldn't then, I'm the only child. So I just couldn't then, I just couldn't then commit then to be going in at full throttle. And I was teaching a good part of 17 years, children qualifying here, left, right and centre. But I couldn't then commit and dedicate anymore, because obviously my mum came first.
Of course.
So then I took a back seat, and we still taught. But then as it went on, then the children preferred doing displays, and then competitions kind of fizzled out. Unfortunately, then sadly, my mum did pass away in that period, and but my mum was my backbone of my dance school and my dad, and without them, they got me into the dancing. But I'll come back to that in a second. But I'm going to answer your question. Why? What was the decision? You know, I've been with Commission all them years, and got some great friends all around the globe. And like you, Mary, I hadn't a clue. I hadn't even heard of Kogel, and I hadn't heard of all the other organisations.
Yeah.
And then I was chatting to somebody from WIDA, and we were having a general conversation. And at that point, I know in Commission currently, it's very, very popular across all the organisations, the simple black top and the black skirt.
Yeah.
And that then suited a lot of the children that were kind of pondering, well, and then they did dip back into competitions. And that's where I am now. So I think because of they thought, because the black costumes at the time, as you can clearly see there, Mary, in that photo behind you, I think there's only 2 or 3 girls in the black, and the majority of them are in solo costumes. So then when the market came with WIDA having the black costumes, it just seemed to kind of fit into place, really.
Yeah, the only thing I think, people talk about the black costumes and that as if, and as a designer, I'm looking and I'm saying that even that in itself, if you have, you have to have the right body shape for the right costume as well, whereas with the solo costumes, the way they are, they're usually made to the shape of the child's body, but to kind of say as well, Kevin, with greatest respect, that there's you're creating an equal playing field with a black costume. You're not, because the black costume is so simple and so basic that if you're carrying any weight at all as a girl, it can show up in areas that you don't want it to show up on. So you have to. I personally think if people want to simplify the costumes, then it shouldn't be strictly a black costume,
I
because
agree.
suit
Yeah.
every child as well color wise. It drains some children. It looks lovely on others. The straight hair, we tried the straight hair here in Munster. We tried getting rid of the wigs. The costumes were so ornate. The straight hair looked unfinished. It looked as if you went up on stage with a beautiful costume and you couldn't be bothered doing your hair. So people went back to the. I don't have, as somebody who has dead straight hair, I don't have a problem with the wigs. I certainly don't have. I love the bun wigs because they're up and they're done within a few seconds, and your hair is set. You don't have to be putting rollers in your hair and sleeping with a head of curlers, which I did have to. And you got 5 minutes in a competition, and then it was gone. I think if you can get the happy medium, but always take into account the child's height, the child's body build, and that's fine. But to say simply, put everybody into a black costume and it'll suit, it won't, because everyone's colorings, their body shapes, they're tall, they're small, they're very slim, they're strong. Children,
Mary, I agree. I agree with you in regards to the shape, the hair, the body. But what the point I was trying to get across was the affordability. Because what it was,
that's it, Sean, or Kevin. That's it. I mean, it should be, if you want to take affordability into account, and we all did. I lived here in Ireland with my mother on my own until Dad could get a job here. We didn't have a load of money, but Mom spent, being an only child, every penny on me. Not everybody who had 4 and 5 and 6 children could afford the things that she put on me, because there was just me. And it's the same nowadays. Something's got to give. I do agree with that, but I still think if you're going to say put every child in black, I'd be against that personally, because black. Black would drain some children on stage.
I'm not saying put everyone in black, because some of mine do wear the solar costumes. But as you say there, the at that time when I did go from commission, a lot of people favoured the black, and And at the end of the day, there's I like the bun wigs. I can't agree with you more. It's simple, and they're a really quick fix, and the so it'll do full circle, Mary, because the costumes are so ornate now. And I love the sparkle, and it's human nature. It's human nature, Mary.
It's for girls anyway to love the bit of glitz and glamour.
Well, the glamour, Mary, come here to me now. If Brad Pitt was to walk into your studio, would your head turn? Mine would.
No, not Brad Pitt. Liam Neeson, yes.
But you know where I'm coming from. And it's human nature, Mary. And when someone walks on their stage and they're all glammed up, it's human nature. You're gonna have that. You're gonna have that in your head. Aren't they gorgeous? Naturally so.
Is that Richard Griffin?
Huh?
Is that Richard Griffin?
It is. Yes. It is. The show Gale Force?
Yeah.
Well, fair play, and I'm going to salute him now.
He's an amazing choreographer.
What a gentleman and a scholar.
Absolute gentleman.
Let me tell you what happened there.
He makes grey hair look really, really cool and attractive.
Mine's is the natural colour now, believe it or not, Mary. That is the dark kind of mouth. I was saying to my dad earlier.
And beards.
But Richard, now, fair play to him. I have to give my hat off to him. He done Gale Force globally, but last year he was touring what I would call the smaller towns and venues around the UK, and they brought Gale Force to Corby. So I contacted him and said, can we come backstage and meet the cast? Oh yeah, leave that with me. Anyway, I think he was over in Kells. He couldn't get a connection. And then he said to me, Kevin, he says, I've got better news for you. He says, we're inviting any dance school that we're touring with, any theatre, we're going to give them 2 numbers. How wonderful is that? So we were very, very blessed.
Wasn't that lovely?
To partake. And I brought all my little babies in. I'm a very inclusive teacher. And I brought my whole school in. And, you know, within like 8 weeks, we had our own choreography. But, you know, again, having that opportunity and, you know, the camaraderie there, Mary, Irish dancing, working together. And I've known Richard all my life as well. But I thought it was so humble of him to let have the local dance school take part with his international troupe.
He did a dance choreography, or he choreographed Michael Dillon's dance, figure dance for the world one year. Michael has it up on his website, and it was just, I mean, as somebody, I suppose, who my research was on childhood under Nazism, and you know, and he did this choreography on Limerick, where I come from, in 1919, when they had a pogrom against the Jewish people, and the Jewish people had to flee Limerick and move to Cork. And you know, Michael took the angle, say, of immigration and emigration, and rather than looking at the Irish going abroad, he looked at the people coming to Ireland and how they were treated by the Irish. And it was a completely different angle, and it was simply breathtaking in every aspect of it. And I think what struck me was Richard's choreography, the way he was able to, and the music, the whole symbiotic relationship between the music, the dance, and the drama, and how they could bring in this Yiddish music, and how they could build the Yiddish music with the Sean did the music, but they blended the Yiddish and the Irish, and it showed just how much we have in common, and how we are so much more alike than we are different. And the dancing, the Richard's choreography was just the Yiddish dancing in the center of it. It was just, and then back into the Irish dancing. It was just a work of art, in my view. It just did it for me.
You know, you were thinking what you were saying. I was just thinking the same. I see Richard as though he's got a paintbrush in his head.
Yeah.
The colours might mix, but he's got such a creative flair. I remember growing up in awe, watching Griffin O'Loughlin doing their choreography in Leisureland and that. I
mean, there's lots of great choreographers out there. You know, they're really and it's just extraordinary how they can bring it. It is like a painter. Instead of starting with a blank canvas and paint, you're starting with an idea and you're producing it, and you're trying to bring in the music, you're trying to bring in the dance, you're trying to bring in the story, and keep true to the history. And that's a special art, when you can keep true to the history as well.
Absolutely, because with the culture, I'm of Irish heritage now, being Galway, you know, and I look at these choreographers in awe, to be honest with you. You know, the past, you know, when I was competing, Kaylee and Figure, huge entries, huge numbers, and I don't know the answer why. It's obviously with the pandemic you can't have the Kaylee, but I don't know why it's dwindling off. I don't understand when you know. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Yeah. How is COVID affecting your classes, or is it? Because from what you're saying, I'm getting the impression that it's dancing as usual for you, very much.
We're doing this. We're doing these Zoom lessons, obviously, because we're still in lockdown. So, like, let me give you a snapshot. So, obviously, in the summer, we were doing.
We're in stage 5 here, Kevin.
Huh?
We're in stage 5 here.
So now I'm trying to think, would that be tier 3? Because Boris announced yesterday. So where we are, we're quite rural. So
Yeah.
we'd be similar to kind of Athlone, Ballinasloe in Ireland. We're right in the heart of the Midlands. So we're an hour from like Coventry and Birmingham, and an hour from London, and we're tier 2. Okay.
I was born in London.
I know. Are you? Where were you? Wembley. Wembley now. Yeah. Well, my dad used to work. I've got some relatives in Pinner, which is Harrow way.
Harrow.
Yeah.
I was to go to school in Harrow.
Did you, Mary?
No, I was to go to school in Harrow.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
But back to COVID. So no, it's been topsy-turvy. 1 minute we're open, next minute we're closed. 1 minute we're open. So I've been doing an awful lot of these virtual lessons. And then I believe I read on the government website yesterday, which is like muddy water. It's clear, but it's not clear.
Yeah.
I'm
going
to come back to Orla and Lorraine and that wonderful speech she had with the Irish government. We haven't got a voice, Mary, over here because we're seen as are we a culture? Are we a sport? Are we an art? But COVID has affected the lessons because although you're doing the technique and the drills and the turnout, you're not next to that dancer. You're not feeling. No. You're saying to that dancer in the hall, move, stretch, and you're stretching with them. But you can't be saying to a dancer if they're in the living room and then they're in the kitchen and then they're.
It's good for drilling.
So it has affected, and an awful lot of the children became disengaged. Some haven't partaken, and some haven't got the time. And I think we're kind of blessed because the children are at school at the moment, but it wasn't easy around April, May, because the children were being homeschooled. So we didn't have any lessons for about 5 months. And then I worked very, very closely with our local council and our MP, and fair play to him, we could do outdoor lessons. But then you had to think of safety then, and then if it was raining or whatever. So we've only been back in our hall for 7 weeks, and then we've been shut for 5. And I think we're back. I'm waiting for confirmation, Mary. I think we're back in 2 weeks' time, but we're in 2 tier. But my heart goes out for those in tier 3. Unbelievable.
Kevin, the way I see Zoom is that it's very good on a one-to-one basis. But for the child who needs more than their teacher in the class, there are some children, and I'm sure you agree, you're an only child. I'm an only child. My mother was an only child. So my world was very small. And I needed to be out with my friends at dancing class just as much as I needed physicality of learning to dance. I needed the social aspect of it, sitting down, chatting with your friends, walking to dancing class, because I went to O'Rourke's and it took me 2 buses, and then I had to walk to get to dancing class, and we'd walk home at night in a group and we'd walk over the bridge, and we'd look over the bridge and we'd see the handprint on the wall, and that was supposed to be Drunken Tady and the Bishop's Lady, and the lads would be trying to frighten me and tell me that was her handprint, and you can remember all of those things. And we're walking across at 9 o'clock at night in a group from dancing class. Nothing compensates for that. You can be in front of the Zoom talking to your teacher and learning to dance for that hour, but you have nobody else to laugh with or joke with, or the social aspect is gone.
Well, very similar. I'll bring in my mom here, because my dad worked in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Cameroon and Libya for most of my
my friend lived there for 30 odd years in Libya.
Yeah. And it was the time of Gaddafi, and they had to they had to evacuate literally like that. And I remember my mom, God rest her soul, she didn't drive, and she'd walk me 3 miles to Kathleen's class and 3 miles home.
Yeah.
Yes, the social interaction is paramount,
Absolutely.
because if you're teaching over the Zoom, I'm going to name a complex move here, like a drummy,
Yeah.
or even a rock. Now
Yeah.
you can't unless you're a child genius, to break down them movements. It takes, and to perfect them to what I would call, it takes weeks, it takes months. You can't do that if you're teaching Zoom.
No.
And then I trialed it, and I was laughing. One of the parents said, "Oh, I can't stop. I can't attend now. My Tesco delivery's turned up." And you can't say, "Oh," and then you had the annoying sibling doing funny faces in the background and doing cartwheels. And I came off with the biggest headache and was frustrated.
It's like that journalist with the BBC and his children came in behind him. Do you remember that?
Huh?
Do you remember the journalist or the a professor on the BBC, and his children came in behind him, and his wife slid in the floor trying to pull them out, and he was trying to talk about something really serious and really political, and there was the child, and he was trying to push her off at the side, and she wasn't moving.
I didn't see that, Mary, but
you have to watch it. It's on YouTube.
So level 5 now. So we're 2 where we are. So what would level 5? Is that the highest? Is it
the highest? Level 5, you're allowed. It's all bizarre. I mean, you're allowed, I think it's 6. You're not allowed anybody at the moment. I mean, the dancing classes are closed because for some bizarre reason here in Ireland, Irish dancing is considered sport. And yet we have the GA, we have hurling matches going on as usual. Rugby, they can go into tackles and not get COVID because the virus is so intelligent, it knows that it's just a rugby match and that they're just actually tackling, they're just in a scrum. It's not going to affect them. But yet if more than 6 children, or if a child went into a dancing class, the virus would say attack. Do you know, it's all ludicrous. And I mean, my parish church is St. John's Cathedral that holds over 1,000 people. Yet you can have 50 at a funeral, you can have 50 at a wedding, but you can only have, I think it's 15 inside in the church. And you tell me how a virus is going to know, oh, he's at a funeral, it's all right.
I know.
Oh, that's a wedding, that's okay. But people are being stopped from going to mass, and that's everything to many people. Going to mass is the same as Irish dancing class to somebody else. It's the social aspect, going down, meeting people, saying hello, going into mass and sitting there for the hour and coming out and chatting to people at the end of the church before coming out. All that strict.
Well, pre-COVID, I'd bring my dad to our parish, St. Brendan's, 11 o'clock mass, and it would be packed from right. But he hasn't been to mass, but they've been doing live.
They do it online.
They're doing it online. But my dad's 86, Mary. He couldn't sit there and be watched because he, as you say, he needs that prayer in the house of God.
He needs familiarity.
Absolutely, and I think that, although these Zoom things aren't, well, look at you and me now. Who would have ever envisaged that people will be doing this? Is the new norm now, and as you said there about the rugby, I've got friends in football and rugby and all that shebang. But I want to come back to all that.
But Kevin, before you go back, maybe we should all take up rugby, because rugby seems to be the antidote to the virus. and hurling and all these sports, these contact sports seems to be the antidote to it, because Irish dancing, you cannot get more socially distanced than it, because from the day one you tell a child in a class, retain your own space on the stage, avoid clashing with somebody. If you bump up against them accidentally and it's not your fault, you won't be marked down. But if an adjudicator deems that you could have avoided that and you deliberately tried to get in front of them, then you could potentially be docked marks. So children are conscious of their own space from day one in Irish dancing, but yet a contact sport seems to be fine. They're not penalised at all.
I know. It's a mind. I'm stuck for words, Mary, because
we all are.
You're thinking that you're doing this good thing for the children, for their mentality and their physical activity, and then to be saying, well, no, because it just seems it's not ticking the right boxes. And as you say, the pandemic doesn't know whether you're doing rugby or Irish dancing. But it isn't. Is it a sport? We could argue this until the cows come home. But I do echo what Orla said. You train like an athlete. I was doing 5 classes a week. 3 hours class,
you train like an athlete, but you are an artist.
I agree. I totally agree, because
so it should be a cultural art form.
Well, what am I now? I'm 49, so I'm the big 5. I'm the big 50 next year, and it is an art. It is an art. When I come off this call from you, I won't be spending my Friday night watching a movie. I'll be sitting down, evaluating and creating and tweaking and steps. But that comes from up here, and then looking at your basic, and then going back to your palette, going back to the artist's drawing board and thinking, that will suit that child there, or that. So you're creating all the time, but it is an art and it's / sport. In my
and the thing about it is, if it could be redefined or reclassified and accepted as a cultural art form that's bringing in money into the country, not just through the dancing classes, but also people coming to this country for the World Championships, the All-Irelands, all the Oireachtasy and everything like that. The amount of money that is spent, it's much more than any other dance form, I think, for the country, because it brings tourism into the country. And there's so much lost because Irish dance, and as well as that, what people don't really often realise is that it's careers for people, because these children, all the river dancers and the Lord of the Dance and the Gale Force, they all started off in competition. We're educating as teachers the next generation of teachers, adjudicators, professional dancers, doctors, if you like, lawyers, professors, because we are the future of those children. We can impact their futures positively or negatively. But when you're locked up in COVID, these children, this is going to affect them for a long time, emotionally. It's going to stunt people's emotional growth, I think, not being able to get into their class, not being able to have the benefit of the teacher that they've had for years, or that they've had for years.
Yeah, totally agree, Mary. And I think the children can't understand what is going on, because we were given basic instructions to do wash hands, stay safe from our side of the water, and people that are flouting that, it just infuriates me. And it's affecting, as you say, emotionally. You try and say to a child, oh, by the way, blah blah blah, went out and had a few beers, but then there was 400 people there and they're having all these house parties, and it's going to go on. It's going to go on. I can't see the light coming out very, very soon. You can do a circuit breaker for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but I think once they get the vaccine, then we can kind of be a bit more assured.
Well, you see, I'm different from you, Kevin. I think people need to be incredibly careful when a vaccine comes out, because you'll have people jumping in and taking things, thinking this is going to get me back into my regular routine. And you want to be 100% certain that that vaccine is suitable for every person, because not every person, there's no one fits all. In my humble, uneducated opinion, I can't imagine that there's any vaccine that would be safe for every single person in the world. And as somebody, I suppose, who has studied for a long time the effects of war and trauma, not just on the victims, but on their families, their relationships with people, with their own children, subsequent to the end of war, and that this is no different of what is being pushed on people, this forced lockdown, people having to isolate, and the loneliness that they're feeling, the social isolation, the feelings of loss, all that's going to manifest itself even when things get back to normal again. People are going to be affected and have flashbacks to what it was like when they couldn't go outside the door. Or you're starting at this stage now. There's an awful lot of this kind of idea of neighbours being encouraged to spy on their neighbours, to tell if they see house parties. That, do they give long-term thought at all to the effects this is going to have on you after lockdown, when you're looking at the very neighbours, or wondering, is it that neighbour? Is it this neighbour that said I had visitors to my home, or blah, blah, blah? It's just insanity. We can't keep going on like this. At some stage, we've just got to get on with life and be practical.
So what will happen then because coming back to what Orla was saying there, like we're teaching, I do 6 and then have a break, clean, and then have another 6 and clean. So why isn't the government buying in to letting the Irish dancing schools? What's their main reason? Because what Orla was saying, that they're letting gymnastics go ahead.
Because they have classified us as part of sport, and Gymnastics Ireland have had, they've been very vocal. The people at the very top of Gymnastics Ireland and the GAA came out very, very quickly and were very vocal and very outspoken about how children were outdoors, or in gymnastics they were able to show that the children don't necessarily meet each other or aren't physically in contact with each other, but yet they're using the same equipment as the previous child. They might use the pommel horse, they might use the asymmetrical bars, they might use the same floor routine, and their hands are going on the floor after somebody else. Irish dancing is completely...
All right, Mary,
apart from team competitions, which you could teach your class and not teach teams for the time being. You could teach solo dance.
Mary, yeah, I think you're thinking on. I'm on the same page as you. I don't know why it's taken so long for either the art sector has kind of, because we're giving entertainment and pleasure and that, but the art sector with the hospitality sector have been bottom of the rung of the ladder, and it's just awful.
I think, in fairness to Uncommission, though, I mean, everyone is only working as voluntary workers on the commission, and this came as an awful shock to them as well, and nobody seems to know really. And I mean, they're doing a great job to try and get us back to dancing, but nobody knows what the right thing is.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I think I personally think the answer has been there all along, and that it is that yes, we train as athletes, our dancers train
Yeah.
as athletes, but they are very much cultural art form, and that that not just dancing loses out, but our culture loses, our tourism to the country, employment, everything loses out because of Irish dancing, because
Definitely.
it's so intrinsic to our cultural identity.
Oh yeah.
It's not just go out and teach that child to dance, or teach them to do this, or this movement. There's so much invested in Irish dancing, or in Irish dancing is so much invested in our whole cultural identity, that it is paramount that it is one dance form. All dance forms should be back should be back and up and running. But Irish dancing is our cultural. It's our whole cultural identity is wrapped up in it.
Absolutely. And look how far it's gone. It has gone global, and fair play. And why not? It's in every continent apart from Antarctica, obviously.
So it's probably even there as well.
the polar bears doing an 8-hand. No, but doesn't that show you how much people love the Irish?
Well, it certainly shows how we can sell ourselves as a nation, and we've always sold ourselves despite our weather, or probably because of our weather, because some people, strangely enough, love to see our rain. I question their mentality, but anyone that would love to see our rain. But
Mary, coming back to the global thing now, traditionally, I was brought up Catholic, and if you were to look back, I think 99% of children that attended Irish dancing were from the local parish, both in Ireland but now I look on my register now, and this is not on a racist slant at all, and yet some of the surnames I can't pronounce, and that's not being ignorant, Mary. It's showing you but it's showing you the transition that in the majority of schools, I would say, but in Ireland and over here, it's became multicultural because they are appreciating.
But it's still holding true to. I like to think that it's still. It's like you've still got you've still got the stump of the tree out of which all these branches are springing, and branches are intrinsic and important to the growth, to the sustenance of that stump, which is our culture, our cultural identity. But all these lovely branches are coming out of it, and that's the multiculturalism that's been brought into Irish dancing. That's all stopped. And now, I mean, we have, as I said, hurling and GAA is going ahead, and that's very important to our culture as well. Though I wouldn't be a GAA supporter, or I don't watch GAA, but it's part of our culture here in Ireland. So why can't they say Irish dancing? It's in the name, is part of, in the same way as Gaelic football and hurling is part of our cultural identity. And we should be on the same way. We should be treated exactly the same as the GAA.
Definitely. I couldn't agree with you more, Mary. And the same thing over here. They're letting the, I can't get my head around this word, elite. Sure, we're all human. We all spend hours. We're all the same. And I think to myself, okay. And then I question, is that all they're interested in? I obviously understand the economy.
You can't become elite until you start off amateur.
Well, you've taken, you wouldn't have Riverdance without people that are in the parish hall teaching from beginners and spending 15, 16 years teaching. Irish dancing is one of the most beautiful art forms, but it's one of the most difficult dances to teach.
Oh, it is. It is. And it's the most strenuous because from start to finish, the dancer has to maintain the same carriage and they cannot stop at any stage in the dance. Whereas most
Mary,
dance forms, you can lie down on the floor, or you can jump up, or you can walk around, or you can move about the stage without physically dancing. It's entirely.
Well, I'm sure when I was doing my Kilkenny races, I would have loved to have jumped off and then had a little lay down on the floor at 3 a.m.
Can I just tell you something, Kevin? When I did my adjudicator's exam and I met Tony Tyrrell for the first time, I recalled it in a eulogy I wrote about him when he died. Tony was my friend, but I didn't know him at this stage. And this little man came over in an Aran sweater. I can still remember it, lovely navy Aran sweater. And Gerard Meehan and myself were on the ground gasping for breath in between our competitions. And Tony just pottered over, not a huff or a puff. Would you like some water? And I said, I wonder who that little man is. I'd say he's a priest from the Aran Islands doing his TMRF.
Love it.
Gerard looked at me and he said, Jesus Mary, that's the first and last time Tony could ever be accused of that. But Tony was just bouncing around, stepping over us to get to the water and to bring us back water. And I can still remember Gerard saying to me, I hope the bee gets the Kilkenny races really, really slow. And in walked Tony to do his set, and they said, and we could hear them, we were outside the doors, and they said, Tony, would you like to do the Kilkenny races for us? And Tony said, absolutely. And he walked out as fit as ever. And the two of us were still, when you said the Kilkenny races, the two, Gerard and myself were still looking, and they said, now Tony had a heart attack years earlier in Wars in Galway. Not a bit out of breath.
I know.
After doing the Kilkenny races.
and doesn't that go to cement the point we're making about athletes? Now, the stamina. I was a very good runner when I was younger and had to make the decision, running or Irish dancing. And I still run now. I haven't got the figure of it now, Mary. But, the stamina you have. But going back to my exam, I was praying for the Orange Rogue.
Why don't those sets have done anymore, the Orange Rogue?
I love that. That was my first recall.
Sushi.
The Orange Rogue was my first recall. And you're going to laugh at this. I think I remember this.
That was my first recall.
Oh, and do you know what? I was more excited to see my number with a bit of chalk on the blackboard.
Yeah.
And Mary, I think I remember now. I've kept all my world programs from many moons ago, and I think I got a 4.333333 recurring, and I just missed out on the medals.
Sorry for interrupting you. I think John Culnan is looking for one world program. There's one or two that have eluded him. And
which year?
I can find out for you, but there's two that he just simply can't get anywhere. He was trying to make it up for the 50th anniversary of the World Championships, and he was asking around. There's two of them that he's trying to put together for the 50th anniversary, which will be next year now.
Mary, if you can do me a favour, I'm going to jot that down now. Give me a second.
I'll try and find out. It's one or two, but I think it's 1 year that he's missing. Right. And he has tried everywhere.
I've just jotted that down in my Irish Dancing Journal. My first world was around 1982. So that would have been 11. Yeah. 11. So yeah, from 82 to about 92, I was at every Worlds.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and then I would have all them programs there, like I think the blackboard, and then when it went digital, you're like, oh wow, and what's 100? Because I think the top mark then was it 24 or 25, the top mark?
I think so. I can't remember now, but do you remember the slope in the Mansion House on the stage?
Yeah. Oh.
When you went down, it was a good job you were fit to get back up again. I didn't think anything of it. The Mansion House. I can remember the Mansion House, and I can remember Frank Slattery. God love him. He was hairdresser afterwards, one of the most genius hairdressers you could get. But Frank was in dancing with me, and I remember he bought a bottle of perfume for his sister who was in hospital. And my mom used to say if she smelt it when she went home, she'd never have recovered, because I think it cost him about the equivalent of 50 pence for the bottle of perfume in the Mansion House. He bought it on a stand. It was vile. And he spilt it. And they had to evacuate the balcony of the Mansion House because the smell was everywhere.
Oh gosh.
Listen to me. It's now 4:30, and can you 4:30? Can you imagine the time flew?
Well, I was looking to my right there, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's dark. It's Mary, we've covered an awful lot, and I'm sure, like every guest, there has to be a cut-off point. But I want to say thank you so much for having me on your show.
Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've tried so many times to get you on, and something happened each time.
and that's the way it goes, Mary. We've got so much in common, and I hope that we can keep in touch. And thank you so much for
Kevin. Isn't that what it's all about at the end of the day? I mean, I never knew about you. You're probably, apart from Cora Somerville, I don't know if you know Cora. Cora joined WIDA. She's from Clare. She was an ex-policewoman. Cora is an absolute lady. Apart from you and Cora, and I know Cora from Commission, say. But apart from that, you and I didn't know anybody from Pogall either until I interviewed recently. And I think, isn't it great that if nothing else comes out of COVID, it's shown us all that what we have in common.
Yeah. And Mary, sorry to end on a cliche here, but we're all in the same boat. And if we can ride the storm and get out of it, sure, haven't we had a great chat today? And that means a lot to me.
It means a lot to me too, Kevin, because, I mean, I suppose having grown up in a Irish, English, Protestant, Catholic, Jewish background family, I was always, I never understood difference. I always understood the fact that we might be made up of all different nationalities and backgrounds, but at the center of it, we're all exactly the same. And I've never understood splits. I've never understood alienation or division or him or us against them mentality.
No.
And I think that I hope that the one thing that the shows have proven is giving people a voice and giving people who might otherwise feel that they hadn't a chance to air their views or tell their story. We look at people at Feshes and we think, oh, they're a fabulous teacher. Danny Doherty. Danny texted me last night to say he's watching all the shows and he's loving them. And that was lovely. That meant so much to me, because you look at Danny and you look at Richard and you look at Kathleen and you look at the McLaughlins and Michael Dillon, and you think these are all star teachers.
Yeah, yeah.
These are all star teachers. But at the end of the day, when you sit down and talk to people, you realize that above all, they're all human beings with a love of one thing: Irish dancing.
Irish, and that's our common ground. Like, and Danny, I've got the most admiration for him. Carol Scanlon, you know, that each region.
Carol Scanlon, yeah.
Yeah, each region, they've got so much genuine, lovely, lovely people, you know, and that's what I think's good. The good part, you know, I've got, you know, like yourself, Mary, you can chat the high legs of a donkey like me, and I think that
Kevin, I'm very shy. Very shy. Retiring. Well, I have my moments. I have my moments.
On that note, I was very, and believe it or not, I was very shy. But you know, I'm gonna end with my teacher. But Kathleen knocked that out of me, and I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you without her and my mum and my dad. And that's kind of.
You did a spectacular job, Kevin.
Oh, bless you. So I'll start crying now. Mary, I'm going to have to go because it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
And you, Kevin. Thank you so very much for talking to me today. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.